The other thing I want to talk about today.
What you got, boo?
Mr. Ketchmark.
Yeah.
So Michael Ketchmark. This is the lead attorney for the plaintiffs that basically sued. We'll just call it sued our industry.
Yeah.
You know, it blows my mind how you can sue NAR, win, sue RE/MAX, which is NAR members, win, sue brokerages under RE/MAX that are over $2 billion. When RE/MAX is paid already, NAR is paid already, win. It's just like, good God, how did this? And so there's a couple things I want to talk about with him today.
Go for
Just
it.
give me a moment here.
Yeah.
So he just did an interview with Inman News. And I'm going to actually go through that interview because I think there's some important stuff that people need to hear in this interview. I have been saying for how long now they're coming back for round 2. I have been saying that I think they specifically won on the merits they did because it allows the industry to think they're following the rules when they're still not, and then they can come back in and sue for round 2 based on the same argument as round 1. And he basically says that in this interview. So I'm going to break down some of these questions. I don't even think you've seen this yet. Am I correct?
Yeah, so it's going to be very new.
I'm going to take over for a second here. You jump in if you want to jump in, but let's go over this interview. Okay? So interview with Inman News with Michael Ketchmark. Mm-hmm. Okay? This poor fella.
What a name.
So I'm going to skip through all the early stuff that it goes through, blah, blah, blah. But guys, he's the head attorney for the plaintiffs that basically, we're just going to call it sued our industry. Okay? Mm-hmm. And first question they asked, we're gearing up for this August 17th deadline. Wanted to check in to see what you're doing on that end. What is it that you get? I don't think there's any value in that answer, so I'm gonna move on. Other than he just talks about how they're looking for people screwing up and there'll be swift legal action. I'm not gonna go into that right now. Okay. He said, he mentions that he's watching all these webinars and other things of people teaching how to move forward. We're watching people's socials. We're watching people's.
I hope you're watching us, Michael.
Yeah. And they said, well, what are you seeing in these webinars and forums that's concerning? Because they're looking for what's wrong. And he says it's concerning what we're seeing. This is so interesting to me because, remember, I've been saying now for the last month or however long it's been, you better get rid of broker-to-broker comp. It doesn't matter that wasn't part of the settlement. They're going to re-sue based on it, okay? And so you literally have people who are teaching according to what's allowed in the settlement, which is still giving out the seller co-opting their commission or their compensation to the buyer's agent, right? Because that's still allowed. So let's look at this interview. They said, what do you see in that's concerning? He said, there's a huge desire with some of these large corporate brokers to continue this because they are literally tens of billions of dollars that have been fleeced out of the pockets of homeowners. And there's a hope that they can continue to do it. But they're not going to be able to. The agents and brokers we're talking to understand this. Okay, so first off, you agents out there that sold all of these sellers' homes at record prices, he's describing you as fleecing the homeowners. Let's just be clear.
Yeah.
Make that make sense for me. Record profits. You fleeced them. Go look up fleeced if you don't know what that means. We're starting to get reports back from agents and brokers, is what he said, in large cities that they're already seeing the commissions are starting to drop. I remain hopeful that that's exactly what we're going to see happen, but it's going to take a while. Just do me a favor here. When you sued the industry because we were fleecing sellers, because you thought that it was the wrong way to do business, because you don't believe that the compensation should be determined up front, you believe the seller should pay the listing agent and the buyer should pay the buyer's agent. What does that have to do with commissions dropping? Mm-hmm. So your real goal was to control the amount of compensation that is delivered, because that's exactly what you're saying that we as an industry did.
Yeah. You're
showing your cards now and saying it wasn't about what was right for sellers or buyers. We want the commissions to drop. What? Mm-hmm. When did that become your goal?
Yeah.
Because you just said it. And then he talks about it's going to take a little bit of time for the free market to adjust to this, but it's going to happen. What part of going after an industry and litigating them into submission was the free market? Because you know what was the free market? Before you got involved, Mr. Ketchmark.
I know.
That was the free market. You decided to go litigate the free market and change it to what you thought it should be. Newsflash, that's the opposite of the free market. Do you not understand that? You could see that when I read this, I'm just boiling over. This is idiocy. Shall we continue?
Yes, I want
We could go the
more.
whole time just on that. That's not the free market. When I make you do something, I don't go, isn't it nice to have free will?
Yeah, I know.
When I tell my kids, you can't do that. How's it feel to have choice? This is so
It's very
ridiculously
contradicting.
stupid.
Yeah.
Okay?
But it's crazy is he is showing his cards. He's letting everyone know.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay, yeah, continue please.
In what ways do you think they're still trying? In what ways do you think they're trying to still continue? This is what the question was. People are talking about setting up third-party websites for commission sharing, or that they could create new kinds of forms that they have that they don't put on the MLS, or other kind of things behind the scenes. The rubber's about ready to hit the road, and really, that's what's going to be important to us. It's not what people are talking about, what might happen, but what does in fact happen. First off, I don't agree with these third-party sites for commission sharing. Where does that break the settlement?
Correct.
It's not on the MLS.
Because the rule specifically is
So
MLS.
you are now showing your cards again and saying, we're coming after that. Just like I've been saying now for months. Remember, babe, you're with me behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Have I not been saying this?
Yeah.
He's full of crap. He's full of crap. Those third-party sites, by the way, are called the free market. Mm-hmm. It's a free market. Mm-hmm. They make it or they don't make it based on what? Merit. Yeah. The free market. But you're saying you're going after them if they come out. That's not the freaking free market.
Oh my God. That's
okay.
wild.
It's also not part of the settlement. Mm-hmm. That's allowed. Third-party sites are not the MLS. Mm-hmm. Mr. Ketchmark. There just needs to be loud and clear warning to everyone who's out there that they need to be careful, because it's not only going to be the settlement agreement that is going to have the force of law. As anyone can imagine, the Department of Justice is now he's speaking for the Department of Justice. Yeah. You think they haven't had backroom deals? The Department of Justice is very interested in seeing how this is going to play out. And we fully expect the DOJ to be actively involved in shutting down any attempts to create new legal conspiracies. So now whatever wasn't in the settlement that they agreed to is now a new legal conspiracy. I'm telling you, because it's the continuation of broker to broker, which they are not going to allow. Okay? Hear me, guys. I can't say this any clearer to you. I said this in a video recently. We don't have to agree. They are not going to allow broker to broker comp. Okay? Mm. But it's the free market. Then the question was followed up. I'll get back to that. In terms of the forms you mentioned, are there any provisions you're seeing that you're concerned about? Mr. Ketchmark responds, right now I don't have any concerns about what I've seen out there or what I've heard. I could stop on every line here. You just said you were concerned above. You just said you're paying attention. So why are you bringing it up if you're not concerned?
Yeah.
But I hesitate to take any position on what actual forms are going to be there, because I've seen so many different drafts. But you can imagine they're all of these different local MLSs with all these competing entities that are out there. By the way, all they're doing is they're back watching how the industry adjusts and then figuring out what their next move is to still be able to sue. That's all they're doing. They're not looking for what's right or wrong. They're not looking for whether you follow the rules or not.
Could you imagine?
They're going, what's the industry standard everybody comes up with, and what's our in? How can we re-sue? That's all they're doing right now. Ultimately, what's going to matter to us are the forms that are actually used and replaced with, not what people are saying may be done or drafts are the ones that are done. When this comes into effect, if there are MLSs out there that are using forms that we think are in violation of the agreement, these are the people who also think we price fixed, are in agreement or that violate the law, we're going to take swift action. Okay? Well, the California Association of Realtors, the question follows up, took out broker-to-broker compensation on their forms. Is that an example of something you would like to see? Or is there still something concerning about their forms? The back and forth that we've seen with some of these large associations, like provisions being in there, provisions being taken out, those are the types of things that I'm talking about. But until I actually see the new forms that are being used and the new documentation that's being used, it would be irresponsible for me to comment in a vacuum, because I have no idea if what I've heard about or what I've seen reported is ultimately what's going to be there. So he hasn't read or hasn't seen everything that's in the public, like You're so full of crap. You guys just said you have people out watching everything going on. Now you haven't seen. I've heard of the back and forth. And although it's something making me hundreds of millions of dollars,
he gave out way too much
I'm paying no
information,
mind.
and now he's reeling back. That's it.
I think there's a large desire in the industry to have the plaintiff's attorney somehow bless this material or bless this information. We're not going to do that until we see how it's written and how it's used in the real world, which, by the way, if your real concern was the sellers, why would you not say, no, guys, do it this way? You don't have to go to court to do that. You could literally, because you care about the sellers, say, don't do that. This is the way. You're not breaking the law. This is the way we believe. But no, we're going to hold off because we want to litigate. But if we find things that we think are in violation of the agreement, we're going to take action. In other words, we're looking for things to take action on. Question comes back. You mentioned different interpretations of the new rules. What interpretations are you seeing? Not a day goes by where someone doesn't send me some type of an Instagram or TikTok or a Facebook page or something on X or on a social media where someone's saying, hey, this means this or this means that. And that's what I'm talking about. There's a lot of that. There have been some forces out there that have created some uncertainty as to what the requirements are, but the requirements are real straightforward. No, they're not. You just said in the earlier part of this that the settlement may not be far enough and that we're waiting to see. And I'm sure the DOJ is going to have something to say as well. And we're looking at it to see whether this violates or that violates. We're not sure yet. It's not clear. How can you say that's clear and straightforward? You literally just said.
Oh my gosh. If you were doing this interview and conducting it, you'd be like,
wait a second.
Let's go back.
Let's go back a second. He says you can no longer use the MLS as a vehicle. This is so important. You can no longer use the MLS as a vehicle for sharing cooperation or for fixing prices. That's what he calls it, fixing prices. If anyone thinks they can get around that, they're wrong. If we see anything out there where there's an attempt to violate that fundamental premise of this settlement agreement, now we're back to the settlement agreement. It matters again. A minute ago, it didn't.
Yeah.
But now we're back to the settlement agreement. That's what we're going to take action against. Okay. This is so clear. So the question comes up again. I don't know if you saw an article I wrote about our Inman Connect conference where the panelists on stage were saying, don't make preemptive offers of compensation. Just say your seller will consider all requests and wait for the buyer to put it in their purchase offer. Then somebody in the audience said, hey, are we doing it wrong? Because our buyer agents are calling the listing agents to ask what the sellers are offering. So is that wrong? I don't hear anything wrong in there. Mm-hmm. Someone's got to know what they're getting paid.
Correct, yeah.
Someone's got to know if it was allowed to still do broker to broker, which is what the settlement says. How do we find out if they're offering or not if you're not asking?
Yeah.
Okay? He says, we're not going to weigh in on these hypothetical questions. Okay, first off, that's not hypothetical. That was straightforward.
Happened. Yeah.
That was the actual question.
Correct.
My involvement in this for the last 5 years, we'll get into that in a second, has told me that the resolution of the right or wrong is so fact-dependent upon what actually is happening. This is just a jump around of words right here. Like he's just jumping around to not answer the question. Mm-hmm. I know when the plaintiff's attorney says something, meaning himself, that the industry can rely upon that and they can use that or they can think that that guides their behavior. But the guiding behavior that they need to be worried about is that they can't violate antitrust laws. I think that's why they asked the question, Mr. Ketchmark. Isn't
so
that why
sure that
we're asking with the person who set the rule?
And it's not no hypothetical.
They can't use the MLS or those vehicles as a way for announcing that they're sharing cooperation or settling the commissions. And if anyone's doing that, it's going to be a problem. Whether or not specific behavior violates the terms of the settlement agreement is going to depend upon the circumstances of when it happens. We're going to call balls and strikes when the ball crosses the plate, not ahead of time. So in other words, the settlement doesn't matter. He will not be clear about what the settlement means. We're going to call balls and strikes means we are just going to come after people because we have found a cash cow.
Oh my gosh.
It's unbelievable.
I can't even imagine being in a relationship with that guy. That is awful. There is no clarity. He doesn't even have clarity for himself.
We will call balls and strikes as they happen. Lawsuit, we'll let that one go. Suing you, but wait, is this okay? Have to wait and see in the lawsuit. Like, this is just... So then the person follows up, which makes sense. She's like, so preemptive offers of compensation are allowed under the settlement, ? If the seller decides, I do want to offer, this is seller deciding, I do want to offer to put the to the buyer's agent, and I want you to not put it in the MLS, but you can put it on a flyer for my house or on the listing broker's website or anywhere else. That's what the settlement says, by the way. You ready for this answer?
Oh, gosh.
I think we're all clear right now. That's what the settlement says, right? Not on the MLS, but you
Correct.
can.
Yeah.
You ready
The
for this?
MLS is the only place.
You guys ready for this? Drum roll. You ready? I don't know. I have to look at what's being done, how it's being done, and apply it to the terms of the settlement agreement. I'm not just going to say yes or no on a question like that. It's going to be dependent upon the facts. Wow. What? I told you they're coming for broker to broker.
I mean, not only for that, there's going to be round 3, round 4.
They are coming for broker to broker.
Okay. So after this interview, everyone, I mean, those that have read it, this is my first time hearing it.
We're not done, by the way.
Oh, we're not?
Nope. Go ahead.
Continue.
Okay. Next question. But the settlement says that they're not prohibited outside of the MLS, and I just want to know if that means they're allowed. Even if something's not prohibited, it doesn't mean that the way that they're doing it is okay. If a seller is being coerced or forced into making an offer of compensation. So in other words, if a seller offers, it's because they were coerced or forced.
Isn't it interesting how he puts these words into like people's... No.
Literally, her question said, if the seller wants to. If the seller says, please offer it. If the seller... And he goes... And his assumption is sellers being coerced or being, because his goal is to sue the industry, and his goal is to lower his goal is to price fix, to lower the commission. That's his goal. I continue. There's all kind of factors that could go into creating some type of illegal sharing provision. So the settlement is not the settlement. It's just going to depend upon the facts and how it plays out. She says, you mentioned you're going to be looking at what happens. Are you doing anything this week or next in terms of prepping for this deadline or deciding how you're going to police it? Sure. There's a team of lawyers from all of the different law firms that are involved in this. Several plaintiffs' law firms with entire teams of attorneys. By the way, I thought you said earlier you're not paying attention to everything. That's why you didn't know. I don't know. I've heard about things. I don't know. I haven't really.
And I bet you they're all getting some type of...
And now there's teams.
And I bet you they're all getting compensated somehow to do all of this.
We have weekly calls. Wait, I thought you didn't know. I thought you didn't know. I thought you weren't paying attention. Now you have teams of people and you're doing weekly calls. I mean, it'd almost be nice to have them on the stand. Like, it's just like, there's so many, and we're taking very aggressive steps to prepare for the launch of this. Launch of what? We plan on staying on top of it as it rolls out. Freaking Gestapo. Who are you? God. She replies, can you elaborate on the steps you're taking? No.
I knew that was going to happen.
Other than I would tell the industry that they better mind their P's and Q's and comply with the law. But by the way, who determines what the law is? He does.
I mean, he should mind his own P's and Q's.
Because this is a hard fought for change.
My gosh.
A tremendous amount of effort and energy went in to obtain this on behalf of the homeowners and sellers in our country, and we're going to make sure that it's carried out the way it needs to be carried out. By the way, you screwed every buyer in the country, Mr. Ketchmark. So it's very selective who you're going to defend, okay? He says, I don't think there should be any doubt in the industry of our sincerity when we say what we're going to do, but I'm not one to let other people know what our preparation is, other than we're preparing. Round 2, everybody, like I said, how much clearer can it get? He's coming for round 2, okay? So when you see the EXPs and the Reels and all these major places going, we're not doing broker to broker anymore, he's coming for round 2.
But you also have to understand, and he made it very clear too, yeah, there's most likely a round 2, but even the other ways that you're trying to do things, third-party sites, so-and-so, there's other avenues.
Which is allowed under the provisions of the settlement. Now he's going,
no.
I don't know. He's telling you I'm coming.
Okay, real quick though, before we move forward, you mentioned that you could tell what side he's on, but the seller side versus the buy side.
Well, until it becomes convenient to go after the other side, but yeah.
Quite honestly, I want to even agree that he's 100% on the sell side. I feel like he's hurting a lot of those sellers as well.
Of course he is.
So he's on neither side.
Babe, we don't believe anything he's saying.
Yeah. I'm mentioning
He also
that,
says
though.
we're fleecing homeowners, that we're doing nothing he's saying is true.
He's not for either side.
He's after he's for his side.
Correct.
He's for cash bag.
That's what I want clarity. I want those to know. It's not just he's not.
Yeah. No, he's for cash. Okay. Literally, the question said if a seller says, I want to offer out so that I get a better, well, if they're being coerced or forced, he can't see a world where that would happen. You know, the world that just existed with record home prices under that, it's crazy. They said, so how soon do you think we'll see? Because he keeps saying, we'll see. I don't know. Will that preparation be visible in some way? Hopefully, the results will speak for themselves as we start to see the sales go through, as we start seeing commissions dropping. So that was the point? As we start to see the free market work. I can't hear him say free market. I can't hear that anymore. And disruptors come in and change the industry. It will be more the fruits of our labor that we'll see instead of the actual labor. In other words, no, you won't see it. We'll be hidden behind the scenes. She then says, will there be any immediate repercussions for MLS or brokers who break the rules? Yes. First time he actually says yes, because it involves litigation. If anyone's breaking the rules or violating the agreement, let's go back to this, though. It's not about the agreement. You've already said the things outside the agreement that you're going to come after. So stop referencing the agreement. Stop referencing the free market. Stop. You don't believe in any of this. Yeah. Okay? You're full of crap. If anyone's breaking the rules or violating the agreement, we're going to look for the opportunity. We're going to look for the opportunity to make example out of anyone who's playing fast and loose with the law. The last thing that we're going to want to be is the person that does that or the corporation that does that. I'm happy to have somebody serve as an example of what happens to people who violate our antitrust laws. Hopefully what's going to happen is it's not going to happen. Yeah, okay. Hopefully, we're going to find that these MLSs start complying. I've always maintained that I really believe that it's in the best interest of the real estate industry and it's in the best interest of these brokers to compete in the free market. I can't with that.
No, the whole free market, the MLS.
This is your market.
Yes.
It's not the free market. The free market was happening. When they do that, I think that the strong brokers who are bringing quality services and doing that either on behalf of buyers or sellers, that they're going to be rewarded and they're going to be paid. People have always been willing to pay for quality service and quality care. We'll get to that in a second, Mr. Ketchmark, with yourself. If you're buying a home, they're willing to pay for that. If a seller wants to negotiate with their agent in a free market, they can do so. Let's just let the free market work. I agree. Hopefully, in the end, I think that the industry is going to realize this is a good thing for the industry. She says, you mentioned potentially making an example of brokers or MLSs who are breaking the rules. What kind of actions would you take? Litigation, lawsuits, court orders, injunctions. Then he brings, get the Department of Justice involved if they're willing to do so. Okay? What people need to realize is that antitrust laws, they're not just civil, they're criminal in nature. And at some point, this behavior can cross over to the criminal realm. Now we're going to prosecute criminally people selling homes. Like, they're going to go to prison now? Would you have to do anything special in order to have it cross over into the criminal realm? We would refer it to prosecutors if we believe that there's something illegal criminally that's happening. So the prosecutor would have to file something as a criminal case? Yeah, that's something we could do. Is anybody hearing what I'm saying right now?
Oh my God.
Selling homes, getting people record prices, we're going to come after you criminally.
Wow. We
have weaponized the freaking what do you call it? Litigators, attorneys, what's the word for them? That world. We have weaponized them on a level. Like, we got to get this under wraps, guys. With you can just sue for anything, and you can litigate people into submission whether you're right or wrong. Like, this has gotten out of hand right now. Like, out of hand. And he said, what do you anticipate the DOJ would do? He says, I don't know. Yeah, okay, you don't know. I would never presume to speak for the Department of Justice. You just did that. You just did that. Okay? And I would never make predictions. You just did that. In the last paragraph, you said what they were going to do. Okay? But I've met with a lot of the high-level folks. Oh, wow. Wow. So these aren't presumptions then. I met with high-level folks at the Department of Justice as well as frontline attorneys. This is a dedicated group of people who's given their lives to the enforcement of these laws. These are heroes, people. These are freaking heroes. I tell you what. You have them and then the military. That's how I look at it. These people saving homeowners and then the military. I mean, that's what I get when I read this. They really, truly want to bring about change here for the American homeowners. Is this guy running for office? Got my vote because he seems like a real stand-up guy. I fully expect that they're going to be prepared to take actions, even unrelated to the settlement. Anybody just hear that? He just spoke for the DOJ, who he doesn't know what they're going to do, but he's had plenty of meetings with them.
Yeah.
I fully expect that they're going to be prepared to take actions, even unrelated to the settlement. So here's the settlement, still gotcha. Mm-hmm. But change is going to come here, whether people want it or not. Gestapo. And then she says, you think they're going to be watching? I would imagine so, but I'm not basing that on any inside information, just my belief. You just said you had backdoor meetings with them.
I know.
You just said that.
Yeah.
God, I can't stand this guy.
He's not the most brightest crayon in the box.
And then she says, we're coming to an end here. To get back to actions you might potentially take if somebody's violating this, is there going to be some sort of grace period or like a week later? Or if they're breaking the rules, then, because clearly we don't know what the rules are. Mm-hmm. Depends on the severity of it. We have a whole arsenal of things we could do, as simple as sending out an email, making a phone call, sending a cease and desist, filing a lawsuit. Just depends on how severe. But in other words, how much money we're going to get. That's really what they're saying. Okay. And then he talks about how people forget that the vast majority of the money was stripped away from local agents and was used by these large corporate brokers like Zillow and others. Now he's on the agent's side. My belief is when it returns to the local brokers and returns to local control, that it's going to be better. I truly believe that these local agents are going to do the right thing. And he goes into whatever. And then she says, when you say the vast majority of those funds have been stripped away from the agents, what exactly do you mean? He says, I say how this NAR rule was being used by companies like Zillow and others to say, hey, if you get a referral, you have to pay back a huge portion of the commission back to these corporations. By the way, that's just a business model. I don't know when we started litigating that. They have every right in the world to give out a lead and only charge a referral.
Correct.
If that sells. That's a business model. I guess we're back to the free market conversation that he so believes in. It really was being taken out of the pockets of the local agents. Who is this guy? This is crazy. She said, you haven't sued Zillow as far as I know. Nope. Our belief is that the change that they are taking place here are going to stop that. What Zillow was doing was going in there and using these local MLS rules and set their business model up on top of this illegal conspiracy. They benefited from this illegal. Guys, I don't care how you feel about Zillow. They're not doing anything illegal. Mm-hmm. You can dislike their business practice. You don't have to participate. You have the choice to use them or not use them.
Absolutely.
Mr. Ketchmark, that's called the free market.
Yeah.
I don't understand some people. And she says, so you mean for them to not be able to get referral fees from buyer's agents? Yes. The whole system was set so that commissions were being established at 6%. Go look at your facts. The average commission has not been 6% for over a decade, Mr. Ketchmark. And then it was being split, and then the entire network was set up in order to benefit from that. I think this is disrupting all of that and changing all of that. Freaking hero. Have you had any issues with the settlement process so far? I don't know if I'm going to cover any of that. How soon do you think it will happen? Blah, 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 blah. Any updates on brokerages yet to settle? He goes, I'm getting dozens every single day. What are the biggest loose ends here? Still waiting. Oh, this is important. I'm going to end with this. So what are the biggest loose ends here? Still waiting to be tied up in all this litigation. The next phase of this litigation, after all this is over, is going to be our ongoing case against Berkshire Hathaway Energy. Money grab. They already got $250 million from Berkshire Hathaway. Now they're after Berkshire Hathaway Energy. Money, money, money. That's going to be the monster case. Trial is set for 2027. It's always off, but in the next year, we're going to start seeing litigation going on there. Our entire trial team is going to be turning our energy and attention to Berkshire Hathaway Energy and holding them accountable and liable for what's happened there. And then she says, so just because home services settled, by the way, for $250 million, doesn't mean that Berkshire Hathaway Energy has. That's right. In fact, a very significant part of the home services settlement was carved out our lawsuit against Berkshire Hathaway Energy and allowing us to proceed and go forward against them. In other words, they wouldn't have settled with them unless they were allowed to go after energy because they think it's a bigger check.
Yeah.
That's going to be the massive fight that remains. The heroes are getting ready. The army is training. So you don't think that will settle anytime soon? No, it's our position that Berkshire Hathaway Energy sat on top of this entire conspiracy and benefited from it. Home Services and all the brokers beneath them benefited from that. They're ultimately responsible and liable for this. We intend to prove that, and if we go to trial on that, the amount of damages will be in the hundreds of billions of dollars. This is a friggin' psycho. Psycho.
You know, you always say there's people that are just bad people. He's just a bad person.
Yeah.
This guy, I mean, he's in it for himself.
Yeah, he doesn't come off well.
And his team.
Yeah, he doesn't.
In it for himself and his team.
Yeah, he doesn't come off well.
Not at all.
There's no doubt about that.
So when was this released, this article or this interview?
A few days ago. And so I think you can see my feelings on this. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't matter. We live in a world where you can... I was just watching an interview with Theo Von and Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Great interview, by the way. You got to love Theo Von. In 1 week, he interviews Bernie Sanders and then Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And if you know me, I love that stuff because I love hearing all sides and I love hearing what people are thinking and why they're thinking that. I'm not one of these tribal, like so many of you listening right now that you just heard Donald Trump and you went like, you know, I love hearing these people. Like, it's like, you know, and I call out dumb when I see it and I call out smart when I see it. But Trump actually said a very smart thing. And he was talking about, remember I looked over at you because I was playing it out loud and I went, that's what I always say. Like, he was talking about how the world has become a world where you can just litigate people and you can sue for anything. And I think he even said, I've benefited from it. Like, I've done it because it works. He's like, but it's wrong. And he's like, the only way you're ever going to fix it is if you pass a rule, pass a law where you say that if you sue anybody and you lose, you pay all of their expenses.
Well, I think the question was who has the power?
Yeah.
And he said the attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
But
in order to pass a law like that, who would it have to pass through? Mm-hmm. Yeah. All of the Senate and Congress, who are all former attorneys. It's sick what our world is becoming, where you're allowing these. And look, guys, I'm not the whole attorneys are bad people. I've had plenty of friends that are attorneys that are great people. But the power they can yield like on people is just sickening. Mm-hmm. I've got a friend who runs a very large corporation. And he goes, the most important hire we make is our attorneys. Because he's like, we can get anything we want if we have the right attorneys. Mm-hmm. That is sick. Like, that is sick.